cousins, and welcome back. In this episode it's more of an inspiration video. It's in memorial actually to a lovely lady called Pauline Verrinder, who used to run some amazing summer schools at Cottenham Village College and was an inspiration to many ladies in the area. She sadly passed away, and I was very fortunate to attend her very last summer school at Cottenham. So I would like to share with you and hopefully inspire you to carry on her legacy, as we have also done by providing Textiles Easter Fair. So come to my desk and have a look. This is a Concertina book that Pauline taught us how to make. Let me just show you how it works. So it actually has pages on both sides. It's got a set of pages there and a set of pages on this side. Okay. And that's my front cover. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit closer. Okay, so this front cover was created using a wet felt method, and then these were needle felted in, this yarn that was needle felted in, and then I've just added some stitching onto it. So if I come up a little bit, you can probably see. I then machine couched these sections here and done some more machine stitching. So that's the front cover and the back cover. Okay, this then kind of opens up this way. So I'm going to, oh no, it then opens, here we go. This wasn't actually done at Pauline's workshop, but I had some pages left anyway, and I was interested in this technique. It's either cantha stitching or bori work. I think it's more cantha because it's using up strips of material and raw edge layering up, almost like quilting, I suppose you'd call it. This was a sample made at Pauline's. It's a violin. I say pelmet violin, it could actually be slightly different material, but it's been dyed, cut and then shaped to make these little buttons. What I've tried to do is provide inspiration for the colours and textures. This piece was done using a wire frame. Fabric was then woven through the wire frame, and then it was machine stitched, and again I just love the combination of colours inspired by the succulents. This wasn't done at Pauline's workshop, but again I just love these shells and wanted to do some pleat work using some of my own hand dyed fabrics. Now this was done at Pauline's workshop, and that's nano felting. So the nano felting was actually done at the workshop, but I've added, I don't know if you can see the detail, I'm going to zoom in a fraction, but there's some French knots, there's beads, there's lazy daisies scattered about, flowing across, got some lovely little sequins. And what's nice about nano felting, if you don't know what that is, it's where you have a layer of wool fibres and then you place squares of fabric on top of those wool fibres. So there's like muslins here, there's some sari silks, there's some georgette, there's even the velvet here, particularly it's a cotton velvet. I've also got some silk velvet here, and that all ruches up as the wool fibres attach and shrink, and that's a really nice, I love the textures and I love the colours of that piece of nano felting. Again, still being inspired by succulents, and this was another piece done on there were square wire frames that you'd very kindly brought into our workshops, which we borrowed. We wrapped these threads this way and this way, and then in some cases I've actually gone, it looks like I've gone diagonally as well, and then just machine stitched, and it just really gives you quite a lacy effect. This one I was having a go at, I think I did these at home actually, again in my own time. I was making felt buttons and I wanted to attach them in a grid format. Again, inspired by this lovely peacock. This is again a piece I've done at home, but this is me playing around with my embellishing machine. What that is, it's a needle felting machine, and I've taken lots of different organzas, georgettes, muslins, silks, saris. I've mashed them all in on the machine, and then if I zoom in, hopefully you'll see I've then hand stitched using herringbone stitch, and I've sewn these lovely glassed beads on that I picked up at an antique place. A sort of leaf shaped glass, amazing things, and some additional beads. There's beads all through here. This page, now this photographer is amazing. I saw him at one of the Royal Horticultural Society shows, and I picked up his postcard at one of the craft tents, and it's all photographs, a close-up of bark, and it's just such a lush design of bark. The artist or the photographer is Andy Small, and I've also made some fabric beads. If you haven't seen the fabric beads, I did do an episode on how to make fabric beads, but there's a very organic looking fabric bead inspired by the bark there. And now this is a piece I've done at home, not at all at Pauline's thing, but as I say, you get home afterwards and you're so inspired to do other things. And this is sort of patchwork patched together and then over stitched with lots of fly stitch, running stitch. I've got lovely textures, that lovely silk velvet that I hand dyed. So a lot of in fact these are all my own hand dyed materials. Transfer dye sateen. The one at the bottom, there's one slightly further down. This one here is a technique where I actually have sandwiched a layer of little bits in between organza and then hand stitched. I call that an encapsulation technique. On this page, again this one I've done at home, it's just printing. I was trying to use my jelly plate. I've got a jelly plate and I was experimenting with it. It's not very clear what I've done, but there's stencil techniques. So this is a piece of art glass that I picked up in a magazine. I was really inspired by that and just loved the translucency and the movement in it. And I wanted to recreate something similar in textiles. It's got, obviously you can't because it's textiles in its own format. It really isn't translucent, apart from the fact that I thought, well, organza works, so I've used layers of organza onto this printed material. I found a part of the material that wasn't too over the top, so I've printed on that. So that's what I call my blue and green side. On the other side of the book, hence that colour, on the other side are my red tones. So I'm just going to show you what's in this side. As I say, not all inspiration came from Pauline. Some of it comes from the internet, and I went through a stage of really liking Eastern European embroidery, and so I've had a go, and I had some beautiful threads that I'd inherited, and they're really 1940s rayons, but the vibrancy of colour was still there, and I really wanted to show that off. And I thought it was just really nice to have a play with them. It's not something I usually get to do much of. Here I like these Icelandic poppies, and so I've had a little go at creating, again I wanted to create quite a translucent effect. I've got organzas, I've got some organza and stitching on some a backing material. On this one, I don't know if you can see that. It's very pale. I might have to zoom in a little bit. But I've zoomed in a little bit. I'm not sure how much you can see, but what that is, it's very, very subtle. But I've used organzas and I've layered them up, and then I've machine stitched them. I'll zoom back out. And then this was a piece I actually made when I used to be a member of the Eastern Region Textile Forum, and we were given a load of scraps to make something, and I actually did make like a brooch that I've attached to this piece because the colours are so reminiscent of this piece. Just added the detail in the corner to it. Moving on back to the succulents, but you can see the colours have changed into the more orangey, greeny tones in this particular one. And this is wet felting in a grid format, and I just love the colour of this fleece. The fleece is a Wensleydale, and you can see the little ripples in it. I'm going to zoom in again because the details are just stunning, I think. So you can see there's the ripples, and the colour travels through that curl so beautifully. So I was able to use these beautiful sort of almost petrol-like iridescent sequins, and then incorporated it with very subtle beads and some very lovely sequins as well. So hopefully you can see that. Yeah, I loved doing that piece actually. So it's wet felted wool, it got some silk in there, and they say the Wensleydale locks. And again, it's the soft colours and it's the organic shapes that I liked creating that piece. Here we're looking at sea anemones, and again I wanted to explore with these, with the organza. I do like playing with organza and then cutting out the shapes and stitching on them. This one here is again me just laying fabric down onto, I love the glitz of this, this is so bonkersly shiny. What I've actually used here as well, they are gorgeous. Now they are fibres that you can you melt to create a layer of fabric. Now I don't know whether you've come across this stuff, but it's like angel hair, and I've got it in various colours. It's called Angelina, and it's a hot fix product. That one was from Art Van Gogh, and it comes in lots of different colours. That's a beautiful, beautiful colour, and I think this particular one, oh no, I don't think it is that one, but it's just, oh, so lush. When you iron it, it can change colour. In fact, I think that light purple might have been some of it. So yeah, that's called Angelina, and you iron it between 2 layers of greaseproof paper. So do experiment. If you ever come across it, just buy yourself a couple of packets and have a little go, because the packets just last forever, and you can stamp into them as well while they're still hot. You can iron them onto some rubber stamps, and that's quite a good fun technique. Okay, this page was inspired by leaves and woodlands turning colour. This is sari silk. You can buy the sari silk now, I know, like a roll off for knitting. I think it really is for knitting, but if you're like me, you've probably ironed it and you've ended up with strips of beautiful sari silk. And that's what I've done here. I've ironed it and I've stitched it down, and this is slow stitching or hand embroidery as it was once known. So I've got things like running stitch, I've got French knots, I've got lazy daisies, I've got some, oh, what else have I got in there? I love this technique with the leaves where you kind of, it's sort of like a herringbone stitch and you can create leaves that way. Just tilt it a bit more. You can see there. And I've sort of created borders of these. Really like that. Now this was something I produced quite a few years ago. And it was using dissolvable webbing or dissolvable fabrics, and you just have 2 layers of this dissolvable fabric in a frame and you just stitch. I think I might have had some cording in there. Yeah, I had some cord in there, sort of like embroidery threads. So I had embroidery threads tram lined in there. I machined them on, and then I just free motion machined the design on, and then I did the beads. And when you dissolve it, you end up with this beautiful mesh. And as I say, I've used metallic threads, and so again it looks really quite lush and quite rich. So let me just zoom out and you'll see it as a whole. And that was technically to form a bracelet. I never got really round to adding. It's got loops here for the buttons at this end, and you could wear it as a sort of a cuff bracelet thing. But it all went with my project, so I thought, hey, put it in my project book. Now this one, very topical in so much as I was looking at the coral reefs for this, and it happened to coincide with me watching, I think it was Blue Planet, and how the destruction of man with plastic. So these are almost like a symbolic piece, and I just found a piece of netting. I'm going to zoom in so you can see, but what it is under there, it will focus, here you go, you can probably see it now, is actually red onion net. You know when you get your 3 onions in the red netting, it's the red netting I've used on a base of different fabrics. I've patched, these are all scraps of orange and yellow fabric that I've patched together, and it's all held together with this mesh, and then I've machine couched these threads on. I've got a funny thing, I did the whole thing upside down, so the net was on the base of the sewing plate, these fabrics were on the top, and because this was in the bobbin, the thick thread was in the bobbin, it managed to sandwich it all together. And these are all my handmade beads. I don't know if you can see them all. All my different handmade beads. And then there's some other sequins and beads and French knots on there. This was another piece of nano felting, but obviously inspired of a different colour in the oranges. This was done at home after the event. But just the richness and the yumminess of those colours. I say based on the corals, hand stitching beadwork, very similar to the blue one. It's nice to re-explore. Just love the sewing of it afterwards. This particular silk really went ruched up. And then moving on, sort of when leaves decay, quite like that one. Again, exploring the technique of interlocking on the frame, free motion embroidery, playing with more textures. So I've got a little bit of muslin in there, I've got sari silk, I've got trim out of some upholstery, and just really again playing with the techniques. So I hope this has inspired you as much as going on the course to begin with inspired me. As I say, thank you for joining me, and I'll catch up with you again soon. Bye bye for now.